Hello, everyone. Welcome to eBizChat, where it's all about business. I'm Rick Zanotti, and I am joined today by Dr. Susan Nash. How are you, Susan?
I'm fine. And you know what? After seeing the Perseverance land with the rover, I would really know that we're all wondering what's next. And so our guest today is going to talk to us about space tourism.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting. But I think what's next is they're going to put a mask on the Martians. That's got to be it. Anyway, in the studio we've got Harold Muliati. He is our video producer, and we have a great guest with Sudhir Pai. He's going to talk all about space, and this is fascinating. Aside from tourism for space and some other subjects, we're going to go on a journey today. It should be a wonderful journey. Here we go.
More and more people are working remotely every day. Your company may already be remote. You may be new to working remotely, whether you're a worker or a manager. Working remotely has some challenges and some very good points to it as well. In our training, we'll make sure that you learn how to work remotely, how to build trust, how to do all the things that make remote working successful. And we'll also talk about some of the pitfalls and what to avoid. Working remotely for workers and managers. It's our new course on Udemy. Thanks.
This show is sponsored by Relay Corporation. Visit us at www.relaycasts.net. Thanks.
And we are back, and in what we call our center position of power, we've got Sudhir Pai. Hi, Sudhir. How are you?
I'm doing great, Rick. Thank you.
We talked a little bit pre-show.
And greetings from sunny Houston, Texas.
Indeed. You were freezing just about a week ago, right?
That's right. And to say that here we are with absolutely beautiful weather,
Amazing.
Which unfortunately is not going to last forever. So.
Well, for those in the audience who aren't familiar with what you do, you have a long career with working in petroleum and gas and energy, and now you're following one of your passions. You were telling us a little bit. You've got certain passions that you like, including Formula One, which sounds like a lot of fun. But this passion right now, you're going to take us on a little bit of a space journey into your passion.
That's right, Rick. Having spent most of my previous career with the world's largest oil and gas service company till April 2019, I said, having particularly the last assignment at Schlumberger, which was a joint venture between Schlumberger and a startup called Liquid Robotics in California. Liquid Robotics is now a Boeing company. So that got me into commercial aerospace. I decided to take a semi-sabbatical. I didn't want to take sabbatical because I've heard of all those people going to the golf course and never returning back. And that's not me. So then I said, there is a bucket list of things that you always want to do. And on there were two of my very close passions in that order: commercial aerospace and yes, Formula One. And one way or the other, Rick, as I've gone through this last couple of years, there is a strong link between what happens in the energy, oil and gas industry, particularly offshore, particularly deep water, commercial aerospace, and Formula One. It's interesting. What happens at 10,000 meters below sea level is not too different, believe it or not, to what happens 10,000 meters and more above sea level in space. And hopefully we'll have a chance to talk a little bit about it on today's journey.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
I'm so excited. Yes. And, I've known you for a long time, Sudhir, and I've always been impressed with the way that you have such a restless curiosity and you make things happen, like with the robotics and now with the integration of space and energy. It's just fascinating.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. And to some extent, I think that's pretty much how I think I've been kind of brought up. like they say, I like to a large extent, get thrown into the deep end and figure a way out to swim. And I get a little bit nervous when I'm in my zone of comfort. I think I perform better when I'm outside my zone of comfort. And again, thank you, Susan, and thank you, Rick, for giving us this opportunity to get together today. I think we are going to have lots of fun on today's discussion.
Shall we get started on our journey?
Perfect. Sounds great. Uh-huh.
And Harold is on our end here. He's going to be running a PowerPoint for you. So just tell Harold what you want.
Very good. Okay. So I do quite a few things, as said, during this semi-sabbatical. One of them, and I'm kind of closely associated with, is the Technology Collaboration Center, of which I'm the current chairman board of directors. Based out of Houston, we try and see how the three main industries which makes up Houston, which is, of course, the energy capital of the world, the space capital of the world, and also a little known fact. In fact, a lot of times people don't know that there are more doctors in 1 square mile called the Texas Medical Center than anywhere else on Earth. So when Susan was talking about conducting today's session, I kind of said, rather than just focusing on perseverance, which is how it started, I said, right, looking at the audience and looking at the interest from people who are going to be also on this call, why don't we just go on a nice journey? And we can call that as space exploration journey. Rick and I had a small chat, and out of that, we coined a few words today. You have a train line on Earth. Let's call it as a space line, and have some of these stations. Of course, there is already the word called the International Space Station, which can be one of the stations. But there are a few stations before and after to go on, and we can kind of go on the journey. Since this is a business talk, Rick, so I thought let's start with some numbers for those people who are business oriented. So here are some numbers about space. So it's $1 trillion or more economy. Just the space tourism has a total market of about 3.4 billion. Revenues in excess of 14 billion are expected over the next decade. At one stage, and this is when we were growing up, if you had to be in space, you either had to be born an American or a Russian, as we know, to be an astronaut or a cosmonaut. And if you are an American, that you had to be connected with NASA. Hopefully, through today's talk, we'll find that that's not the case anymore. Space is for everybody, and that's where we want to reach. Yeah. Yes, it is starting with big numbers of ticket items that you need, etc. But here are a couple of other interesting facts. Let me give you. Based on a survey done of net worth of people, there are more than 37 million people in the world with a net worth of between 1 to 5 million. There are 3.5 million people with a net worth of 5 to 10 million, and there are more than 1.8 million with a net worth of 10 million. And one final number or set of numbers to 3,000 space enthusiasts, you may say, from various financial status who were surveyed and asked about their interest to travel in space. 20% of them said that they would travel in space during their lifetime. And most of them also said that they are willing to spend at least a year's salary to pay as the ticket to go into space. So just kind of tells you that these are solid numbers to say that this is not just an exceptional thing. This is here to be good. And I'm absolutely excited about the cusp that we are on right now, Rick and Susan, to where we are going to go in the future. The future for space in all of its forms looks extremely bright. I'm as excited getting into this field as I was years ago, getting into the oil and gas industry. I feel like the 25-year-old again. Yeah. So as we make a beginning, let's look at the kind of slide I had put together with the edge of space. So as you start to go up, a couple of and again, just a disclaimer. There's a disclaimer. Anything that I'm presenting today is common knowledge, nothing proprietary. The whole idea is to share this information with a large audience. Yeah. So as we get into edge of space, roughly about 20 kilometers above surface, you have what are called space balloons, taking people right up to space and giving you what is called a phenomenon which was coined by a good friend of mine, Frank White, called the overview effect, giving you a nice overview of that wow feeling of how it looks down on space, looking from a little bit away from Earth. Travel between two cities down the road is going to make a big move with Virgin and organization, etc. Going at supersonic speeds. We've heard travel times down the road of between, let's say, the United States and Australia coming down to an hour. So can you imagine a board going all the way from the US to Australia for a meeting, doing the full board meeting, and yet coming back home for dinner with the family? Are things which are out there, not distant in the future, happen. Of course, there are going to be two modes of travel. Completely one set of travel, which is going to be the usual way of landing down on airstrips, etc., which is the horizontal landing, and there is the other one, which is the vertical takeoff and vertical landing, which we see a lot with SpaceX, etc., going through, right? So that's kind of what we see as edge of space. This is kind of, you may say, an entry-level ticket to get into space, and we should see this part of the forum growing quite in times to come up with the organization led by Tabor McCullum and Jane Pointer with Space Perspectives, the balloon that you see in the picture on the top right. Yeah. Continue, Susan. And Patron, unless you have any kind for me at this moment.
Well, I think it's fascinating, and I've peeked at the PowerPoint beforehand, and I can't wait to hear about the space hotels.
Wonderful. We are reaching right there next. So that's the idea. You have what is called as the Carmine, which is kind of a line which separates out kind of the Earth's atmosphere from the outer space, gives an opportunity for space enthusiasts to go up there. So these are going to be kind of inflatable technology. Again, there is a whole list of organizations. So if there are some organizations I don't mention, kind of nothing wrong there. We only have X amount of time today. Organizations' names I'm giving is as a representative to say some of these people have done quite a bit of work. Orion and Bigelow are two organizations who kind of done quite a bit of work, making what are going to be space hotels, wherein just like how you go on a trip on Earth and spend time at a resort for a few days, let's say going from the Caribbean being so close to us, you go from Houston to Puerto Rico or something like that for a week's visit. Similarly, the feeling is, yes, people will be going to these space hotels for a week, getting an experience of microgravity, getting an experience of weightlessness, getting an experience of what it is that these privileged 550 or so astronauts and cosmonauts have had the opportunity to go there. There are only a handful of what are called private citizens who have had a chance to go up into space, paying their own money. One of them, I had a chance to interview him last year at a conference, Richard Carriott, and he shared quite a bit of experiences of what he did spending a week at the International Space Station. Well, it is similarly taking that concept and doing beyond scientific stuff to go up to things which are going to be up in space, like space hotels, etc., going on a 4-day, 7-day package to spend time up there and then come back. Some things which were unheard of in the past, but you see them at the end of the tunnel with some of these things coming through, yeah.
And you're saying this is about a decade from now?
Yeah, should say so. I think what affected a little bit on a very good roadmap, which some of these organizations had, the pandemic obviously created some issues. So some of these things are put out. But as we see about some of the news that is being given out by some of these organizations, yes, Rick, I think within this decade we should see quite a bit of this come through, especially with momentum that we are seeing from a lot of countries. As I said, once upon a time it was you only talked about US and Russia, but it's interesting to note as we go ahead that there are 108, give or take, countries who are one way or the other connected with the International Space Station.
Yes.
And that's very exciting, yeah.
Yeah, it is exciting.
Yeah,
excellent.
And the fact that United Arab Emirates is going to Mars, as well as China, and there's another country too, Russia, I guess, is or is it Japan? Anyway. Yeah,
a total of 6 countries have been to Mars, including the European Space Agency and India.
Oh, that's right, India.
Yes, and has sent what is called Mangalyaan, and of course, most Indian words have a meaning. So Mangal means Mars, Yaan can be a journey, can be a trip, can be a tour. So Mangalyaan means a journey to Mars.
I love it.
Great. Can we continue on our journey, Susan?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. So continuing on, I thought let me give a quick this slide is a little bit busy, and the reason to make it busy is because to capture everything related to satellites out here, of course, lots has happened in terms of satellites, and you see up there the number of satellites which have been put up currently. The SpaceX holds the record with a record launch in January of 143 small sats on a single launch, previously held by India in 2017 with the number of launches up there. If you can keep the slide on, then thank you. Then I can highlight some of the things for the audience. So you can see on the bottom right the exponential growth of satellites. The bottom left heat map of the world between what happened in the previous millennium and what is happening in the 20s. You can see that in the previous millennium it was all about the Americas, but now you can certainly see more and more countries interested and launching satellites up there with milestones being made either in terms of technology. For example, China is doing some great work in terms of quantum-based communications, etc. India is doing a lot of work, sending satellites up there, be able to give weather information and agricultural information, etc. Down here on Earth. A few 2-3 years ago at a conference in Houston, the head of the commercial organization of ISRO, Rakesh Shashibhushan, gave a very good overview of how the satellite industry in India is helping the common person about weather and about improving agriculture, et cetera, how weather affects agriculture, et cetera. And you can kind of see out there, right? An important one, Susan, was the launch which was made as a combination between the United States, NASA, and European Space Agency to send the Sentinel-6 satellite package up there, be able to monitor the climate change and the global warming effects on Earth, looking at the change of the water levels, which you can see on the top right. And hopefully some of these unmanned satellites being sent up there, and with having these satellites sending data back to Earth, will help us on Earth understand what is happening on Earth better with that bird's eye view from up, and essentially make this Earth a better place to live in. Yeah.
I really think it's amazing. I like the way everything comes together with the satellites, with the exploration, so that it's not just futuristic thinking. We're getting benefits here and now. And one of the things that I was thinking today about weather satellites and the importance, for example, even like the cyclones that regularly flood, like Bangladesh and Myanmar, and be able to track that and save millions of lives by helping people say, okay, this is where it usually floods. Don't live here. You can farm here, but don't live here.
That's right. And just to know that a few years ago, the only way to get that data was either from fixed buoys or things that you would send in the ocean to then send you that data. And a lot of those things which are sent out go away from the area of interest because they get washed away, etc. Right? Here you have an opportunity, like you said, wherein based on whether you put them in a geostationary orbit or whether you put it in a polar orbit, etc., you can have data 24/7 from any part of the Earth getting to you. And with more and more synergy between the various satellite organizations, etc., and sharing that data, thanks to organizations like NOAA, which make it happen, I think we are moving in the right direction to make Earth a much better place to live. Right? And for this, hey, thank you, space, right? Okay, let's. I would say, shall we continue on our journey, Susan?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so moving on, space stations are the next place. It's interesting to know that for more than 20 years, and I give this example to anybody. We have a 14-year-old daughter, and for all the time that she has been born, multiple people are away from Earth on the space station full time, because for more than 20 years, the space station has been manned by astronauts, cosmonauts, etc. As I said, 109, more than 109 countries up there. That space station is supposed to have an end of life, and it's nice to know, based on the public announcements which were made, that XPM Space from Houston, my city, is in the process of building an international space station, which is going to start attaching modules to the current international space station, with the intention towards closer to the end of this decade to break off. And while the current international space station retires, that one will be the next international space station, taking a lot of the lessons learned from the existing space station and putting in state-of-the-art technology for various things. So it looks extremely exciting. Based on the current experiments which are happening at the space station, which is going around the Earth at roughly 17,500 miles per hour, making trips roughly around every 90 minutes. And being in microgravity gives the chance to do a lot of experiments. We don't have time today to look at all of the experiments. I have pointed out two. One is the stem cell research, which is happening up there from a US perspective. And then from the ISRO perspective, the development by those ISRO scientists, the left a part of the heart to help all of those people who have heart issues, etc., as a spin-off to come across. And with that also comes a lot of spin-offs which have come by the experience that people have had from space. Memory foam, the tempur-pedic foam that you use is actually something which was designed to give comfort to the astronauts up in space. LASIK surgery is another one. At a conference which we did here in Houston late last year on the theme of imaging, wherein the first time we had experts from the energy, the healthcare, and the oil and gas industry and space industry get together. One of the astronauts, Dr. Donald Pettit, explained about an experiment he was conducted while he was on the space station about the effects on the retina and the long-term effects of vision once you come back and when you are in microgravity. So these are some of the examples of tests which are being conducted up there at the space station, which have direct impact to improving life back here on Earth, and also trying to find out if there are long-term effects about somebody being in space as more and more people start to go into space, if there are long-term effects as you come back on Earth. So fascinating stuff happening, a few kilometers, 240 kilometers above Earth. Yeah. Okay, shall we continue our journey?
Let us.
Okay, great. Let's. Sorry, Susan.
Yay, we're here. We're mining.
Okay, yeah. So here we are on Moon, and considering I wanted to make sure that we had something for the petroleum geologists. So some of the stuff that we will cover in the rest of the time that we have on today's call is quite a bit related to mining on the Moon, and in a sustainable manner. So right now, a lot of the stuff happening up there and planned up there is going to be unmanned rovers and robots going up there, mining at various parts on the Moon based on which country sends up there. I mean, there is absolutely a very clear focus based on some of the trips which the unmanned systems have made to the South Pole about the presence of sustainable products like ice and water to make sustainable stay up on the Moon. It's interesting that on the previous slide, and we don't need to go up there. There was one of the biggest expense, as mentioned, at a water workshop which we conducted in Houston, wherein members from one of NASA's consortiums. NASA is a member of the Technology Collaboration Center, but we had somebody from a Jet Propulsion Lab come in and explain about how one of the biggest costs and things up to the International Space Station is water, and how more than 70% of the water is kind of recycled at the space station. So this is important news up on the Moon, to be able to find any areas like water up there, mining for rare earths which are not available Earth or available supply, particularly from, let's say, battery storage area is important. And there you see at the bottom right a very nice consortium between Japanese Space Agency and Toyota having created what is going to be a futuristic vehicle with the right wheels, etc., to be able to work on the lunar surface. So again, lots happening on the moon, and of course, we are excited about the Artemis program, wherein the next man and the first woman are planned to go up to the moon from the U.S. soil. So this is going to be absolutely exciting in the times to come, in the next few years. Yeah.
So what do you think about the economic prospects for people? Obviously, right now it's very expensive for anybody to go to the moon or anywhere else for that matter. But what do you think economically will happen in the future? Do you think there'll be more efforts to, let's say, colonize the moon, maybe create the space hotels? What do you think? Do you think companies will set up locations there, or like you said, the space station will continue to grow, become even larger? That's fascinating in and of itself. Did you know an engineer at JPL by any chance called Joe Smith? He was the original. When the space
the name certainly rings a bell.
Well, he was the systems integration engineer for the space station originally. Back when he's a friend of our family, and it's interesting because he used to tell us all about what he was doing, and people would ask him at a party, "What do you do?" And that was a 30-minute conversation of what he did, and they're all looking at him like. But it was fascinating because he actually was the person in charge of making sure everything fit where it should in the space station, all the different components, parts. It was quite a job. It was just fact because I'm listening to what you're saying, and it's an enormous project, and the complexity of it is pretty stimulating of what we are capable as humans of doing when we focus correctly. Now, I hadn't heard about the plans to expand the space station before they got rid of the old part of it. That's really fascinating.
It is, yeah. And like I kind of said, we are talking about this space line, right? I mean,
Yes.
every single trip, Rick, and that's a great question you raise. Every single trip that is made up there, it's a wealth of information,
Yeah.
a wealth of data that you collect. Sometimes even things which look too obvious are in for a surprise, and all of these steps that are there, be it to the edge of space, be it going further out into the space hotels, and then etc. down the road, are going to give information which is absolutely going to help. I think commercialization and privatization of this industry is allowing more and more people to come into this organization. The number of startups worldwide, the number of companies which are getting in there is creating a very healthy competitive environment. It's also helping the test process without any shortcuts, without compromising any safety, without compromising quality, and making sure a couple of statements that we have used, and I've used it in oil and gas, and I can only see how important it is even more in space, which is to make sure you get it right first time, every time. And unless it's a pilot case, failure is not an option, right? I mean, you got to get it right first time, because things not getting it right can be catastrophic. I've seen it in oil and gas, and I can only imagine what it is in space. So that, plus as it's about volume as well, I guess. So as more and more launches happen, as the price of launch up there and return continues to drop, and with the commercialization of this, gives a lot of hope, I think, to a lot of people to be able to go up there. And the number of organizations interested in this is a testament, and the meteoric exponential rise of just not only just interest, but financial interest in this field is a testament of the fact that I think this is here to stay, not only to stay, to become an important industry.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
So what happens if you What happens if you go to the space hotel at the edge of space and you're looking down and you realize that U.S. or the world has gotten into some kind of horrible conflict, and your return space station has been destroyed, or your landing place, and you're trapped up there? How long can you stay?
Well, that's a good question. I can only go by the number of days I think astronauts and cosmonauts have been on the space station, close to a year, I think. Let's also not forget, and I know we are going to talk a little bit about Mars as well. A typical trip, as they say, to Mars is going to be year to go, year to come back, and year and a half to be there. So we are talking about a 3.5-year trip. So I think people are going to be prepared to start spending, if necessary, extended amount of times up there. And that's the reason, Susan, these researches are going on to see that if there is, and I hate to call it force majeure, right? But a force majeure situation wherein you have to be up there. Hey, it happens on land here, flights get cancelled, snowstorm comes in and cancels all of travel, this, that, etc. We see it in the oil and gas industry. I've been on an offshore rig, and I've had to wait once. Of course, it was a situation because of which there was weather, etc., that nothing could come, not even boats could come close to this for 2 weeks. So I've been on an offshore rig for 2 weeks, unable to find a chopper to come back, and space is going to be no different should that come. Hopefully, we'll all live in a harmonious environment, not to at least have that kind of conflict on Earth. But I'm sure, absolutely, as part of a process, these are some of the things which will have to be mind, understanding that departures, arrivals won't happen sometimes like clockwork, right?
Yeah, that is interesting. Good science fiction question, Susan.
Absolutely, absolutely, a great question, and I'm making a note of it to as well to ask the right people the right question.
Well, that music says we are pretty much at the end of our time. Sudhir, we'd love to have you back on and talk more about this. I know it's hard in 40 minutes or so to even touch the surface of what we're talking about, but it's fascinating. You've got me sitting here like a little 20-year-old too going, I love this idea. This is fun. This is exciting. So it'll be something really interesting to keep track of and find out where it's going.
Absolutely.
Well, I agree.
Yeah, I know we didn't have time to cover Mars, but I think Mars is a story by itself. Like Perseverance rover is there. Lots of things happening there. Particularly, one of the main things, which is two main things. One is the ability to see using MOXIE to find presence of oxygen and carbon, and the second one is something which is very close to my heart, because as a wireline engineer, one of the jobs I did is collecting cores from downhole and to find out the presence or absence of hydrocarbon in there. Guess what? A similar technology is being used by the Perseverance rover to collect, I think, 34 samples, which is going to collect and keep, and then a futuristic rover is then going to go and collect it from Perseverance, and a third rover is going to go ahead and bring it to Mars, back from Mars to Earth. So exciting times, another experience up there, which will then kind of take us to the journey down the road for people continue on that, as we say, space line journey to go to another station, destination Mars, right? But to end from my side, at the end of the day, is with what we started. I think we are reaching a stage wherein, as I was growing up, I'm proud to feel that yes, I'm a US citizen now. I'm here in the United States, but then you don't have to be anymore any of those. Space is for everybody, and everybody is taking those interesting, positive steps ahead in that direction, leaving Earth, but not leaving Earth behind. Yeah,
that's right. That's great.
Wonderful.
Well, Sudhir, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing this with us. It's a very exciting journey. And I want to hear more about what you're doing in all this in the near future, because it's, like I said, we just touched on it right now. So thank you so much for coming and sharing on this. And if anybody in the audience has questions, you can get a hold of us. You can put them in LinkedIn, and we can try to get answers for you. And even Sudhir could probably take a look at the LinkedIn and answer them. So don't be shy. This is something that will affect all of us at one point or other, and could be some incredible opportunities, not only in business, but in life itself. So thanks again for joining us. Susan, as always, a pleasure. And we will see you all next week on, eBizChat. Have a great one, everyone. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you, Sudhir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Rick.
Oh, thank you.